Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the podcast, The Endurance of Labor Laws. I'm your lovely host, Lesley Sullivan, and today is episode 165, and today we're going to take a look at the Superfund sites located in the state of New Hampshire. So this should be very interesting because New Hampshire is a small state, but unfortunately, they have quite a few Superfund sites. We have seen this happen in the northeastern part of the United States. For some reason, the northeastern part of the United States has way more Superfund sites than the rest of the United States, and that's very sad because the northeastern part of the United States is very heavily populated. And what's interesting is that those states tend to be very liberal, very progressive, very much part of the Democratic Party. They have every right to choose what party they are in. You know, by all means, I'm just making a statement here, a clarification that I find it very odd that the most liberal states tend to have the highest taxes and yet the worst Superfund sites, and it makes it very difficult to get things done whenever the private sector is hindered and cannot produce jobs and people do not have good access to making a lot of money and things of that nature. So needless to say, the federal government, I believe, and also the state of New Hampshire, their state agencies have very much failed their people because the state of New Hampshire is not very large, but yet it does have quite a few Superfund sites. But before we dive into that, I want to give a big shout out to my listeners because as usual, you guys are awesome. So let me go to my lovely list here. So a big shout out to Oklahoma, California, Virginia, Texas, New York, Pennsylvania, British Columbia, Illinois, Oregon, West Virginia, Indiana, Georgia, Ohio, Massachusetts, Florida, Alabama, District of Columbia, Colorado, Minnesota, Washington, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Kansas, North Carolina, Nevada, Maryland, Michigan, Iowa, New Brunswick, Louisiana, Connecticut, and Manitoba. In terms of countries, the United States, Canada, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Slovakia, South Africa, Japan, Denmark, and Uzbekistan. In terms of things that are celebrated, just a little bit of housekeeping. See, November 14th, some of the things that are celebrated is National Family PJ Day. I don't really like that. I was not raised wearing specific PJs, and I think there are a lot of families that they try and wear the same flannel PJs, and I think that's kind of creepy. I think it looks, family-oriented in a catalog, but I don't know very many people that do that, and I think it's kind of creepy. I also think it's creepy whenever people have children, and let's say, for example, they have like 2 or 3 daughters, and they're all young, and they're taking them to church or whatever, and they dress them all in the exact same outfit. I find that to be very creepy. It's disturbing. And I think that takes away from the individual being an individual. So that bothers me for sure. Because every child is their own human being for sure. It is also, in terms of November 14th, it is National Pickle Day, which I'm not a fan of pickles. So by all means, eat my pickles. Eat all of them. I don't care because I do not like them. I do not enjoy them. And I do not buy them. It is also National Seatbelt Day. And I did not know this. It is National Spicy Guacamole Day. So for sure, if you want to take care of your health, do eat some avocados because they are very healthy for you, for sure. It's a really good fruit. So let's go ahead and dive into this podcast, this episode about New Hampshire. Again, New Hampshire, for those who are listening in from other countries, New Hampshire is a very small state in terms of landmass and geographic location, I would say. So it is up in the northeastern part of the United States. So it is not heavily populated per se, but considering that there are a lot of people that live there in terms of it being, yes, they have a population there, but it's in a small area. So you have a small density in terms of the land mass, but you have a high density of people living there in a small area. And so it's very sad to see that there are so many Superfund sites that are current and active in the state of New Hampshire. Again, New Hampshire tends to be very liberal, very progressive, and typically part of the Democratic Party in terms of how they vote. And they have every right to vote how they choose. That's fine. I am all for people voting. I don't care how someone votes, as long as they vote for something that they truly believe in. My concern is that A lot of states that are run horribly and have high taxation are typically the liberal, progressive blue states, meaning predominantly Democrat. So I'm not surprised that the northeastern part of the United States has not gotten this stuff cleaned up. So let's go ahead and dive into this. And again, as usual, I'm going to be reading the ones that are current and active first. I will give the name, the county that it is located in, and if I have access to the population number, I will give that. And I will also give the date that it was listed on the national priorities list, because again, I am reading from a very small list. And so Superfund Sites, again, if you're new to this podcast, they are toxic hazardous waste sites that exist in the United States and in our territories. So to date, we have about 40,000 Superfund sites littered across the United States. And the worst of the worst, meaning the very toxic hazardous sites, are put on what is called the national priorities list. These are the ones that I'm reading off. And if you're new to this podcast, you're probably thinking, well, what in the world, what does this have to do with the endurance of labor laws? What does this have to do with workers' rights? It has quite a bit to do with it, and here's why. Basically, you have a right to a safe working environment, and you also have a right to live where it is safe for you and your family. Unfortunately, the EPA has failed tremendously, and this is a federal agency, the EPA. It is the Environmental Protection Agency. It was founded for really good reasons, actually noble, wonderful reasons. It has great goals, a lot of good things with it, but over time, it has gotten off track, whether it was run by a Democrat or Republican, but specifically, the EPA tends to get off the rails really quick, really fast whenever a Democrat is in power. And so that affects who is appointed to these federal agencies. And so the EPA has totally missed the mark in terms of protecting the American people from Superfund sites like this, and it has also failed in terms of cleaning these up. So again, a Superfund site is a toxic hazardous waste site, whether it was caused by a company in the private sector or caused by the federal government, meaning, for example, the United States Department of Energy or the United States Army or the Navy, whatever the case may be. There are so many different reasons why these Superfund sites happen, but what is really sad is that for the most part, these Superfund sites, they are identified, they're just put on a list, and then they're not cleaned up. So unfortunately, what is really sad with the EPA, and kind of very hypocritical for the EPA, is that they claim to care about the environment, and they care to claim about people, but they are not cleaning these things up. So if they are not cleaning them up quickly, safely, and efficiently, then that means that you and I are being exposed to these different things that the human body was never meant to be exposed to. And so what's interesting here is that the EPA is getting away with not cleaning these things up, but yet if it were a private sector company that was currently open and operating, OSHA would have a field day with these people, would have a field day with exposing workers to toxic hazardous chemicals and waste, but yet this happens all the time in terms of Superfund sites and the EPA. So needless to say, maybe the OSHA and the EPA should get together and knock these puppies out, get them cleaned up. As I've said in times past, I truly believe that these Superfund sites and the cleanup of these sites should be outsourced to the private sector, because the private sector tends to get things done quickly and efficiently. So I think that they should hire companies that specifically focus on this type of industry, meaning that's all they handle is toxic hazardous cleanup, and there are companies that do that. So I think it would be a good thing to do that, and I would not mind them doing that. Unfortunately, at this point in time, the EPA is spending millions upon millions of dollars, and they are not cleaning this stuff up. I think they have turned into a professional paper pusher agency, and that's very sad because they actually have the potential to get things done. And I think they should have the desire to get things done and for it to be good and true to what they say they are going to do and what they should do in our society within the United States. But let's go ahead and dive into this puppy. So the first one that is current and active is the Troy Mills landfill. Again, landfills tend to be really bad. I don't know why, but they tend to be bad. This one is located in Cheshire County. The population is 76,458. It was added to the list in 2003. The next one that is current and active, and what I mean by that is that it is not cleaned up. It is still a problem. It is still contaminating the environment. So being that we people, human beings, are part of the environment, that means it is bad for us. We're not just talking about plants and livestock and the air. Whatever is in the environment is for you and I. So if something is toxic and hazardous to the planet, it is toxic and hazardous to you and me. So the next one that is current and active is Chlor-Alkali Facility. It is located in Coos County. The population there is 31,268. It was added to the list in 2005. The next one is Fletcher's Paint Works and Storage. It is located in Hillsborough County. The population there is 422,937 people living in that area. It was added to the list in 1989. The next one is New Hampshire Plating Company. It is also located in Hillsborough. It was added to the list in 1992. And FYI, it's not telling me what the problems are with these, so it's just a shorter list, kind of more concise. So if ever I find out what exactly the problems are or were, I will let you know. But at this point in time, I don't have that data. The next one that is current and active is Savage Municipal Water Supply. That's kind of concerning because it directly impacts the water that people drink and they use. It is located also in the county of Hillsborough. It was added to the list in 1984. The next one that is current and active is South Municipal Water Supply Well. So again, affecting the water supply, not good. It is also located in the county of Hillsborough. It was added to the list in 1984. The next one that is current and active is Sylvester. It is also located in the county of Hillsborough. It was added to the list in 1983. The next one that is current and active is Auburn Road Landfill. Again, landfills tend to be really bad. This one is located in Rockingham County. The population there is 314,176 people living in that area. It was added to the list, in 1983. Sorry, my throat is a little dry. The next one that is current and active is Bead Waste Oil. It is also located in the county of Rockingham. Let's see here. It was added to the list in 1996. The next one that is current and active is Coakley Landfill. Again, landfills tend to be really bad, unfortunately, for whatever reason. It is also located in Rockingham County. It was added to the list in 1986. The next one that is current and active is Kearsarge Metallurgical Corp., if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It is located in Carroll County. The population there is 50,107 people. It was added to the list in 1984. The next one that is current and active is Keefe Environmental Services. It is located in Rockingham County. It was added to the list in 1983. The next one is Matolo Pig Farm, and this one is also located in Rockingham County. It was added to the list in 1987. The next one that is current and active is, I think it's Otati and Ghost Kingston Steel Drum. It is also located in the county of Rockingham. It was added to the list in 1983. The next one that is current and active is Peace Air Force Base. It is also located in Rockingham County. It was added to the list in 1990. The next one that is current and active is Tinkham Garage. It is also located in the county of Rockingham. It was added to the list in 1983. The next one that is current and active is Town Garage Radio Beacon. It is also located in Rockingham County. It was added to the list in 1989. The next one is Dover Municipal Landfill. Again, landfills tend to be really bad, unfortunately. This one is located in Stratford County. The population there is 130,889 people living in that area. It was added to the list in 1983. The next one is Somersworth Sanitary Landfill. Again, landfills are bad in terms of Superfund Sites. It is also located in the county of Stratford. It was added to the list in 1983. The next one is Tibbetts Road. This one is also located in the county of Stratford. It was added to the list in 1986. Unfortunately, New Hampshire does not have any to list that have been deleted from the list, meaning they have not cleaned up any of these, so that's really sad. There is one that they are proposing to add to the list, and it is called Mohawk Tannery. It is located in Hillsborough County. Now, they proposed that this one be added to the list back in 2000, but for some reason they cannot decide whether or not to go ahead and add it to the list. And so this is one, I think this is a very good example where you have a federal agency that says, hey, we want to identify the worst of the worst so we can address it. Well, they have identified it, but they have not addressed it because this one has been sitting in proposed mode since the year 2000, so a little over 2 decades. It's like, really, like, how long does it take for the federal government to decide whether or not something is bad enough to be addressed and to be cleaned up. I mean, think about it. I mean, 22 years, that Superfund site could have been cleaned up and good to go, but they have not done that. So unfortunately, what is going on with the EPA in terms of this is they are identifying Superfund sites. First of all, it takes them years to identify there's a problem, so there's obviously a delay. Stupidly, there's a delay. So it takes them years to figure out there's a problem. Then it takes years to be added to the national priorities list. So a lot of these properties or these Superfund sites sit in limbo in terms of being proposed to being added to the list. Then when they do get on the list, then they sit there for even more years and they still do not get cleaned up. So basically it's very rare to see that a site is identified, gets added to the list, and gets cleaned up quickly, safely, and efficiently. There's such a delay and a lag here. It's so sad. The only thing I can think of is that it's because of having a federal agency. So hopefully the EPA, can take a page out of the private sector book and figure out how to do things quickly, safely, and efficiently, and figure out how to get these things back to its original state in terms of the environment. And unfortunately, some of these, I hope that none of them have been redeveloped. I mean, it didn't say that, but it didn't tell me anything about any of them. Unfortunately, with the last one we covered in the previous podcast, there were some that had been redeveloped property, but yet they were still considered to be on the national priorities list. So they were still considered to be toxic and hazardous to human beings and to the environment, but yet the EPA redeveloped the land and sold it off. So I don't think that's appropriate. I think that's very horrible, evil, wicked behavior, because if that happened in the private sector, oh my goodness, the government would be all over that company for doing that. But yet when the federal government does something like that, it's considered, it's deemed as acceptable and normal behavior. And it's like, wow, so the federal government, in terms of the EPA, they're making money on both sides of these deals. So they're basically getting millions upon millions of tax dollars, but then they're also making money off of the land that they are redeveloping and selling. And yet these sites are still on the Superfund site list. Like, they are not cleared in terms of being healthy and considered to be, they're not considered to be normal property. So again, if you're purchasing property, whether to build a home or a business, or if you are acquiring a company and you have property, I do think you need to take a look at the history of the property and see who owned it and see if there are any restrictions or if there are any issues with it being toxic or hazardous, to humans and or livestock, because again, whatever is toxic for people is toxic for animals, and whatever is toxic for animals is toxic for people. So we need to be careful about those things, but for sure, if you're buying any type of land, or if you are going to be inheriting anything, or if you are going to be acquiring any buildings, let's say for example, you are a huge company and you are merging with another company and you're going to be taking on more property and land and buildings, I do think you need to look into, okay, has the EPA ever owned this property? Because I would want to know what was here before something was built here. Basically, what was the problem and did they actually clean it up? Because what we have seen in times past is that just because the EPA, says they have the ability to sell the land, that doesn't mean that they should. Because we have seen in times past where they actually developed or redeveloped property that should have never been redeveloped because it was not cleared to be completely safe for people or livestock. So that is a big issue there. I don't like that. I think it's a problem because I think that if the EPA actually cared about people, it wouldn't do such things like that. It would never, ever do something like that. Like, there are so many things that shock me about the EPA. I'm thinking, initially when I was, looking into the EPA, and I thought about, hey, why don't we go over the EPA? I think it would be a really good topic to cover. I was actually really excited about it. Like, I had a way more positive opinion of the EPA before I actually started researching it, because now it's just like, whoa, what are these people doing? I mean, if they're not professional paper pushers, then they're definitely making very bad decisions that affect our country and our people. So that is, to me, a big issue. So again, the EPA is a federal agency, and whoever is in charge of it, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, or whatever the case may be, they are appointed to that position. It's not something that goes to the private sector. It's not something, it's not a position that the American people decide, although I think that would be good. I think it would be good to have more oversight over this. But it is a appointed position, as most federal agency jobs are appointed in terms of people that are in charge of them. So I think we need to double check these things and make sure that people are doing what they say they're going to do. And if they are not doing what they say they're going to do, and also what is expected of them in terms of their job function, then they need to be fired. I think we need to find somebody else that actually cleans these things up, because I think it's horrible that we have any hazardous toxic waste sites in the United States. And I think that these have gone on way too long. And I think the EPA has greatly failed on this, and there's no excuse for it, because the EPA was actually founded to help protect people and to get things back to normal in terms of the environment. And obviously the EPA has failed. It just likes to find problems but not actually solve it. So that is an issue. I think it's very sad, but I look at it this way. Things can only get better, not worse. So I very much look forward to those things. But as usual, I will go ahead and end this podcast. But until next time, I pray that you're happy, healthy, and whole, that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Thank you so much. God bless. Bye-bye.